Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. Here I am. I've been slaving away behind the scenes, building. Oh, look at that little pop of stuff right over there. Look at that. It's almost to the point where we can guzzle it. We'll see if you guys can fill that by the end of the show. So this is my show that I do 5 days a week, and the morning show 3 days a week, and then of course the radio show on Saturdays. It's a full dance card. There's a lot of, when the show started, initially, I was the only person that I'm aware of that carried all the Trump rallies all the way through, long form, and the Mike Pillow movies, I did all the way through, long form. And quite frankly, after Trump lost, sorry, I still enjoy saying that, even though it happens so often, you'd think I'd get tired of it, but no. That thanks, Andrea. I'm trying a little rotation up there. The PayPal tip jar is alive and well. Look at that. I'm working on it. I read some of the stuff I get sent. But after Trump lost and a little bit of a wind down after January 6th, I thought, we're probably going to hear less and less of that cretin. And we can just kind of move on with our lives. Maybe I'll keep doing the show. Maybe not. Maybe I transfer the show into like an exercise and hobbies. Like maybe I'll just unbox things while breathing into ASMR ears. Having only HALs, and yet here comes history to remind us that none of us get to skip it. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to remind you that especially if you grew up anywhere around the 90s, if you were in your 20s in the 90s, as I was, or if you were in your teens in the 90s, or even younger, I think if you're on the far end of it, maybe not, but majority of your teen years, if they happened in the 90s, you might have been lulled into the false sense of security that historical things no longer happen on your watch, that as of the 90s, game, set, match, USSR done. Now all we have to do is listen to artists sing songs about how their dad was never around. And yet, here comes 9/11 and 2008 and 2014 and then 2016 and then those years and then this year. And you have to remember that you not only are going to be alive when a lot of history happens, you're going to be a part of it. That's why I would like to remind you to vote this fall. That's right, participate like you give a shit. Remember, as we say around here, one of our favorite Sparksisms, if you are ever faced with a choice that you believe is the lesser of two evils, vote for less evil. Otherwise, you're voting for evil. I'm just going to throw that in there as well on the end. And I know it's crazy. It sounds like crazy talk. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of lunatics out there that are going to try and talk you out of voting. They're going to say it doesn't matter. They're going to say, it's the two sides of the same coin. No difference between the parties. Two-party system is basically a uniparty system. Those people are assholes. And they are in the business of making sure that evil always is slightly ahead of all the good in the world, so they have something to talk about. I, on the other hand, as you well know, if you have been familiar with my work previous to this, I got other shit to do. So if politics, if the bottom dropped out tomorrow and nobody wanted to talk about this stuff anymore because it was handled, I'm good. I can make as many I love the 80s as will keep you guys from being bored, or as many dude where's my cars as stoners need to laugh and sit amongst their friends and eat Cheetos. I got no problem with other shit to do. Touring comic for real, not the faux Jimmy Dore we're doing stand-up thing that he always sells. I actually do have those things. So it's interesting to me to look at the people who are like all in on this shit in a way that if it started to go well, they'd be doomed. Their business model would collapse, TYT. And There's a bunch of that going around. We will get to some of that today, my fine friends. But first and foremost on our list is our resident coward, the Mess D'Souza. And the Mess has been, and I do mean has been having to respond to people's critiques of his movie more than any other like political documentary I've ever seen. Like, no one is buying this. It's amazing. Yes, Nails by Sherry reminding everyone the Illinois primary is tomorrow. If you're in the Illinois area, if you are an Illinoisian, if you're a Chicagoan, I love you. Vote. Just, if you don't give a shit, pretend you do for a little while. Again. But this, boy. So one of the things that there's a lot of issues, obviously, with the movie. Obviously, he asked me for my 3 biggest criticisms. I said the premise, the evidence, and the conclusion. I think that sums it up. But for the Mess D'Souza, he's having this is a new one to me. I've never seen this before. He's been getting like emails and stuff, but apparently now he's taking recorded calls or something. I was setting this up literally to get levels on audio, and I was, I gotta say, I was kind of stunned that it wasn't just him reading this one. Who cleans up after 2,000 mules? The Mess D'Souza. Anyway, so this is how to, I love this one. How to explain what a tremendous loser Trump was during the election. No, how to explain that Trump was the biggest loser in America. No, that's not what it says. It says how to explain the apparent absence of down ballot fraud in 2,000 mules. Or you mean down ballot losers? Because, again, Republicans picked up House seats during that race. Everybody who's in elected office, the vast majority of them, especially in these states, those folks got either elected or reelected or something. They've still got their job. How did that happen? Well, apparently this is a quickie, so he's going to answer this for us. I'm fascinated. I can't wait to find out. By the way, if you like the show, like it and subscribe to it and thumbs up it and all those kind of things. If you hate it, like it and subscribe to it and thumbs down it and write something awful in the comments that stuff that won't get you broomed. Obviously, we want it to stick around. You can be rude, make one of those comments. These are my current favorite. Make one of those comments that calls me a C-list out-of-work actor, but at the same time says A-list actors are adrenochrome-snorting, baby-eating, cannibal sex witches or something. So it's good. It helps me because I don't know whether I should be ashamed or proud. You know what I mean? It's an emotional horseback ride for me. As my grandfather said, those kind of comments will pearl your teeth, curl your hair, and give you tongue a sleigh ride. All right. I'm paraphrasing, of course. Now, yeah, 2,000 laptops. That's the next movie. All right. Whew. Here we go. I have, all right.
Let's go to our first question.
Let's do it. What is the bell?
Hey, Dinesh. So 2 quick questions. The first one, you said Republicans did pretty well in 2020.
Also, since he's not posting the whole thing, like an asshole. Sorry, I'm moving the audio a little bit. He's not explaining that they did a whole episode where people left messages, I guess.
But it was Trump that lost. So my question is, if those were illegal ballots, why do you think, Republicans did well? I mean, why not go all out and just make them all, Democrat ballots and then just make it more sweeping? So that's kind of a question I have, is why only Trump and, people would vote for Republicans otherwise.
Yeah, that's a big problem. Also, for the record, if I may, and I know that a bunch of you guys are, hold on one second, I gotta move myself over a touch. Hi, Dinesh. Hello. Hi, Dinesh. not only that, well, let's see what you guys think, chat-wise. What do you think his answer is going to be? I'm kind of going with, if they did all of that, it would be too overt and they wouldn't get away with it because it would be so clearly, so clearly fraudulent, right? That's my theory. That's where I think he's going to go. The other one is that I guess down ballot Democrats didn't pay for it. Yes. Besides, it didn't happen, Hikira. That's not fair. I want to know what this asshole thinks from your point. Oh yes, Jan 6 hearing tomorrow. Very excited. It was going to be a month, and now obviously something's up. Hallie looks like the mouse from Cinderella. It's an excellent point. I want to hear his reasoning too, because answer is I'm an idiot. Okay, there you go. All right.
Secondly, regarding those two
two of them
women that were, or those two people, I think they're women, that were arrested in Yuma, Arizona. They're arrested for trafficking. So it looks like upon reading it, they just collected them illegally and deposited them in a drop box. I don't think there was anything that alluded to multiple drop boxes, 20, 30, 40 a night or anything like that. So far, it's great.
They also busted a woman in Texas for doing it. Local race again. This happens when people are like running themselves or a friend is doing it. So they're just trying to clamor for these like local seats.
That they were caught, but nothing about multiple drop boxes. So again, that the volume of fraud doesn't appear to be there, at least in those two cases. Thank you.
See, yeah, so pre-recorded, so the dude can't butt in. If I may, before we even get into this is the laziest form of response you can possibly do. This is the biggest dick move because there's no follow-up. And he gets to pick which ones.
Yeah, these are both really good questions and already of a higher caliber than some of the so-called fact-check issues that are raised that I've been answering on the podcast.
That's in all fairness, so he hasn't been answering mine at all. You can't even watch it. I did the whole movie. I did everything. I didn't pick one thing. I was like, it's raining bullshit. Hallelujah, it's raining turds. All right.
Let me deal with them one by one. On the issue of the down ballots, we raise it in the movie. In fact, I myself say that it is an argument against fraud, that Trump lost, but down ballot Republicans did pretty well. And so that is put out there for...
Yes, we know this. You have to say it because everybody's thinking it.
For people to recognize in Act 1, in the very opening minutes.
And then we ignore it.
Of the movie. Now, sometimes when you have a theory, you're able to sort of go back and apply it to puzzles that were there at the beginning, and it immediately resolves them. But at other times, you have a theory that doesn't...
that reality refuses to back up.
...speak to the issue. And I think this is a case where...
What? Is he arguing straight up irrelevancy?
The argument of 2,000 mules, or the evidence of 2,000 mules, doesn't really resolve how that anomaly occurred. And here's what I mean.
We know what you mean. You don't think it's a problem worth addressing. You bring it up and then you piss it off. You know when you could have done it? You know when you could have addressed it or gone back if you had any evidence you wanted? Fucking hell. If you could have used one of the multiple moments that you recut that asshole in the backpack dropping shit off, that was the multiple angles of the same moment that wasted a shit ton of time.
It is possible that the altered ballots or the fraudulent ballots were voted Democratic all the way down. They weren't just votes for Biden, but they were votes straight down the ticket for Democrats.
Then they would have won in the volume necessary. The idea, okay, I think I get a feeling where he's going. This is, but Democrats voted for Biden, but not the other Democrats, and it balanced it out.
And And so even though there was fraud to that degree,
Uh-huh.
the degree of the cheating shown in the movie,
No, there was no cheating shown in the movie.
in Trump's case, the fraud was enough to defeat Trump. So Trump lost Georgia. But the fraud was not enough to change the down ballot outcome. So some other Republicans in places like Arizona, Georgia, still did pretty well. Now, obviously, we know in the runoffs there was a bad outcome for Republicans, but that was a separate election. So the
Right, but it was using the exact same machinery and all that kind of stuff. What do you think, that they won by a similar margin, but the Chinese and the Spanish satellites had just given up at that point?
point I'm trying to say is that
Is that it's not your problem.
without retrieving the ballot. If we could retrieve the ballots, we could answer this question decisively, right? Because if we could retrieve the ballots,
We wouldn't have a private ballot system in this country, and you could just sick the Proud Boys on groups of people who are going to vote, or steal their mail before an election on purpose and just shred people's shit. And if you only get caught part of the time, you could make an impact.
we could look at them and say, hey, here's a ballot where apparently this person, this ballot delivered by a mule only has a vote at the presidential level, let's say Biden over Trump, but no other votes are voted.
Which is great if there are no recounts on any other race except president. Because then nobody's going to bother to check if there were just a bunch of fucking blank ballots stacked up that just Biden or Trump, just that's all they did was top line, and they blew off everything else just in case, because they were only trying to weight it one direction. He does realize there have been recounts on other races during 2020.
And then we would know that the cheating occurred only at the presidential level. And by the way, that's not inconceivable. It's not inconceivable
Yes, it is. It's fucking ridiculous.
that the Democrats go, listen, Trump is the Nazi. Trump is Hitler. We can't possibly take the risk.
But the rest of these Andy Biggs and Ron, Johnson, MTG, all this, they're lovely. Yeah, that's what Democrats did. The important thing was getting rid of Trump. Gosar, though, gets to keep his seat.
Now, the rest of it is too complex, and the operation becomes too complex. We would then ultimately have to deal with all the votes, not simply for candidates down ballot, but also perhaps referendums and other types of things that are.
Right. And when they did recounts about any of these close referendums, guess what? They didn't have a shit ton of Jesus, people only voted for Biden. There's nothing else on this ballot.
On the ballot. We don't want to deal with any of that. We're simply going to focus.
Yes, that's the thing about Democratic voter fraud. It's just so, lazy. They want to phone it in.
On the presidential race. That would not be. There's Trump derangement syndrome, but I wouldn't say that there's Republican derangement syndrome. So
Jesus Christ. All you're doing is making the case for why a lot of Republicans this round voted for Trump and still voted for the Republicans on the ticket.
you can see why the Democrats might have targeted Trump. But
Yeah, might. Didn't.
I emphasize the word might because we don't know.
Right, you don't know. So, all right, why are we even watching any of your shit? You don't know. You don't know. Your movie doesn't prove shit. Your argument is garbage. It's a ridiculous spackle.
Let's turn for a moment to Yuma.
Yeah, let's.
Now, Yuma is a very small area. Let's remember that the bulk of the research focused in 2,000 Mules is in large cities. Atlanta, Phoenix, Milwaukee, Detroit, Philadelphia.
Yes, and it comes up with fuck all, I think is the technical term.
You're dealing with
Okay, and he's got COVID too.
large areas, many drop boxes, and sometimes
And yet, large areas, lots of security cameras, many drop boxes, and no footage of any of the mules you have in these things going to more than one, ever. They've got a couple of ones that they've got cameras on, but never a crisscross in two districts in the whole fucking country. In all the footage they have, Oh, don't get me started.
Drop boxes
We're going to redo the whole fucking movie again.
strewn across multiple counties.
Yeah, and you'd think there'd be a camera on one of them you could get the rights to, apparently. But when you did, the problem is, here's what I think. And let's just put a pin in this shit for a second. I guarantee you that True the Vote and this fucker both got footage of multiple drop boxes in an area where they allege, according to their info, that these people went to because of their geolocation data. And yet when they checked the footage, the person never stopped. They went by the box, but they never stopped there. It was a stop sign near the building. They were within 30 feet of the fucking thing, but they never got out of their car. They never stopped. There's no footage of them doing anything. So they can't show you that. They have to show you they were nearby there because it's their neighborhood and they were near a bunch of the shit. But if they showed you the footage of that moment, it would show that that person's car drove right by the fucking thing, and the whole movie would eat a bag of dicks. It would just fall apart. That's why it's not that they don't have footage of these drop boxes at the time when these people were supposedly there. It's that they do. That's the essence. And here's the thing, more so than this asshole answering questions like this about, well, how come you don't have? My question is, give me the footage. I would like to see, because I would like to see your geolocation data, and then we want to scan that geolocation data, the timing on it according to them, because it shows them going by, but they never list like the time of day and all that kind of shit. I want to see the footage of the other drop boxes on those moments, because they're a very specific reason why they're not showing it. Damn, I never thought of it this way. That perspective makes this movie extraordinarily deceitful. Yeah, that's the point. They do have footage of multiple spots, but they don't have any footage of anybody going to two spots, which means they are lying about the positioning of it. And it means they have footage that lines up with the geotagging data, but it doesn't show the people going to them or to even the activist centers. So and if they show the timing of it, here it is when they went by that one place, and it doesn't show them doing it again, it's horseshit. The whole movie falls apart. They have footage that's exculpatory to their entire argument, and this is all a smokescreen just to avoid showing it.
In Georgia, for example, Gwinnett County, Cobb County, DeKalb County, Fulton County. So it's possible to get in your car and go over 3 or 4 counties, hitting various drop boxes. Now,
and yet,
Yuma is not like that. In fact, Yuma would not normally have even been in the study. The reason it was included is that True the Vote had done some work there. There was a case in Yuma. There was a woman who cooperated with the authorities who agreed to be interviewed by Greg, so she's in the movie. But in that area of Yuma, there are only 2 drop boxes. So yes, it's a small operation. We're not talking about mules going to multiple drop boxes.
You're not even showing them going to both of them. There's not footage of them going to 1, much less 2. And again, this was a local election. Rules are a lot more slipshod in those areas about local elections.
In fact, in these cases, these 2 women, they're more accurately described as mule drivers instead of mules themselves, because they're not going on these mailman-style routes. Their job is to sort of...
No one is.
Collect and collate these fraudulent votes and then go make a single drop. So it's a little bit of a different situation.
In a local race.
Situation, but nevertheless relevant to paid ballot trafficking. These are women who were, in fact, compensated, as were people collecting those ballots. But the operation in Yuma is of a different magnitude.
Meaning it would do nothing to affect the outcome, and it's easily discoverable. How do you think Dinesh believes this crap? On a certain level, no, I don't. I think he believes in the power of the grift, and so he keeps selling it in the same way that, like, you work at a Ford dealership, but you drive a Mercedes, and all day long you're talking up these Fords, man. These Fords are something else, you know, and your boss paid for the Fords, and they're all like, mule team drivers. Don't get me started, Elizabeth. That's what I think he believes in the grift.
And the operations described in the other cities.
Oh, that's it. And he didn't even answer the second fucking question. I mean, other than
trafficking, these are women who were in fact compensated, as were people.
Okay, hold on. Let's take a look at what Yuma ballot trafficking. It says June 2nd, 2019. This, let's see if this is the one. Scheduled back at court June 30th. Okay, this is the Arizona AG's page on this Yuma County thing. This is from June of this year. Yuma County Attorney General Mark Bromovich announced that Guillermo Fuentes of San Luis pleaded guilty on Thursday to 1 count of ballot abuse, a Class 6 felony for her role in an August 2020 primary election ballot harvesting scheme. Again, this is primaries. None of this is national. They get busted in a primary. You think this is going to fly in a general? Where early ballots from other voters were collected and deposited into a ballot box on primary election day. In December 2020, Fuentes and Alma Juarez of San Luis were both indicted for 1 count each of ballot abuse, also known as ballot harvesting. In March 2022, Juarez entered a guilty plea to a ballot abuse. Arizona law only provides for a family member, household member, or caregiver of the voter to collect voted or unvoted early ballots from another person. Under Arizona law, ballot harvesting is a Class 6 felony. Fuentes admitted that she knowingly collected ballots from another person, and those early ballots belong to individuals for whom I am not a family member, household member, or caregiver. Fuentes further admitted that the early ballots were later provided to Alma Juarez. Fuentes is scheduled to be back in court on June 30th, 2022. The investigation is conducted. Okay, so let's look at the backstory on this fucking story. This is okay, so here's June 1st. This is the Channel 12 News. Here we go. Records shed light on suspected ballot harvester in Yuma County. Records obtained by the Associated Press reveal how a former mayor of San Luis allegedly collected ballots during the 2020 primary election. It was for her election. An Arizona woman indicted in 2020 on accusations of illegally collecting ballots apparently ran a sophisticated operation using her status as a well-known Democratic operative in the border city of San Luis to persuade voters to let her gather and, in some cases, fill out their ballots, according to records obtained by the Associated Press. Guillermina Fuentes, 66, and a second woman were indicted in December of 2020. By the way, in December of 2020, like right fucking away from earlier that year, it was from the spring of 2020. So there were eyeballs out during this anyways. This case was being looked into. For ballot abuse, practice known as commonly ballot harvesting, that was made illegal under a 2016 state law. Additional charges of conspiracy, forgery, and additional ballot abuse were charged and added last October. They took them down. She pled guilty and to one term of ballot harvesting, essentially. Fuentes is a former San Luis mayor who serves as an elected board member of the Gadsden Elementary School District in San Luis, has a Thursday court date. Fuentes is accused of collecting ballots during the 2020 primary election in violation of the law that only allows a caregiver or family. Her attorney, Ann Chapman, has responded. Republicans have rallied around the possibility of widespread voting fraud. There is no sign, they're pointed charges against Fuentes as part of a broader pattern in battleground states. There's no sign of that in the investigation records, though. They were obtained through a public records request from the Arizona Attorney General's office that was first made in February 2021, but was denied. The AP sent a request in late October. The records show that fewer than a dozen ballots could be linked to Fuentes. Not enough to make a difference in all but the tightest of close local races. It is the only case ever brought by the Attorney General under the 2016 law, which was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. Investigators said it appears she used her position as a powerful figure in the heavily Mexican-American community to get people to give her and others their ballots to return to the polls. Alleged illegal ballot collection by Fuentes and her co-defendant happened in plain sight outside a cultural center in San Luis on the day of the primary election. The report shows Fuentes was at a card table set up by supporters of the slate of city council candidates and was spotted with several mail ballot envelopes, pulling out the ballots and in some cases marking them. The ballots were taken inside the cultural center and deposited into a ballot box. Like, this is the most ham-handed pile of shit, and it's not even muling. Like, this is the stupid part of this. Oh my fucking God. This, first of all, was in a primary election for which she had skin in the game. She was a former mayor, and she was on the board, and she was trying to help other people in her local thing get elected. Fuck her, it's garbage and it's stupid. But she wasn't picking up, she wasn't ballot harvesting. She harvested from a card table and brought them in the building. Yeah, she got caught right away. She was doing it out in the open. She wasn't paid to do this. This was her own, this is like run-of-the-mill local bullshit. The ballots were then taken inside the cultural center and they fucking gave them to her. She's like, you can give me your ballot and I'll drop it off or I can fill it out for you. That's it. It was videotaped by a write-in candidate who called the Yuma County Sheriff. Fucking doing it out in the open. Why isn't someone doing a documentary about this? Oh, they were on their fucking phone. An investigation was launched that day and about 50 ballots checked for fingerprints, which were inconclusive. The investigation was taken over by the Attorney General's office within days, with investigators collaborating with the sheriff's deputies to interview voters and other, including Fuentes. So they checked the inside, because the ones that she filled out, they checked 50 of them, and she wasn't wearing gloves. So her fingerprints were on less than were inconclusive or that less than 50 of them, whatever. Although Fuentes is charged only with actions that appear on the videotape and involve just a handful of ballots, investigators believe the effort went much further. Attorney General's office investigator William Cluth wrote in one report that there was some evidence suggesting Fuentes actively canvassed San Luis neighborhoods and collected ballots, in some cases paying for them. Collecting ballots in the manner that's common to get out the vote tag. She paid for them. There was no like secondary group. She was literally doing this herself. Paying for ballots has never been legal. Exactly. Bye. Go to jail. Who cares? There's no sign she or anyone else in Yuma County collected ballots in the general election. But investigators from the Attorney General's office are still active in Yuma County. The Arizona Republic reported Tuesday that search warrants were served last month at a nonprofit in San Luis. The group's executive director is chair of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors and said the warrant sought the cell phone of a San Luis councilwoman who may have been involved in illegal ballot collection. This is basically... They're trying to get her elected. This was to get this San Luis councilwoman elected. At a legislative hearing Tuesday, where election conspiracy theorists testified, the Yuma primary election case was again a highlight. It's all about corruption in San Luis and skewing a city council election. Like, dude, this is so fucking lazy. Anyway, so let's be abundantly clear. The first question, which is the biggest one, he just blows off as unimportant and says, yeah, there probably is a stack of, Biden-only votes that aren't suspicious at all. And the Democrats' response was, well, I don't know, which we have to think about these things. We have to, figure out who to vote. Like, how would this fictional Biden voter vote the rest of the time? Like that, they don't want to do the work, so they're just like Biden and then just shoved it into the fucking pile. It's nonsense. Yeah, 80,000 people live in Yuma, and what? Like half a dozen ballots they know of, and maybe 50 in total for a local city council primary. And they caught her right away as she was doing it. It's just so gross. Oh, yes, of course, Dinesh D'Souza has a podcast. Debbie's the producer. Debbie, his wife, is the producer. You're watching HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. I think I'm the only person who's live gone through the 2000 Mules documentary, line by line, lie by lie, and pointed out how desperately full of shit it is. And the only thing I think dumber than the premise, evidence, and conclusions of 2000 Mules is the fact that apparently Dennis Prager and Larry Elder became more gullible as the hour went on, or whatever the fuck, while they were watching it. The fact that both of those guys are supposed to be like deep thinkers on the right, and both of them were like, wow, wow. Like, come on. Invariably, though, this is just, it's just, like, at this point, it's a bore. That's the amazing thing. Dude got, for the record, like and subscribe to the show. And if you can support, there's a PayPal tip jar if you want to help out, or if you're a regular Cash App or Venmo user, you can support the show that way. You can super chat. You can, of course, like and subscribe. That helps immensely. Subscribing on Twitch helps us immensely as well. If you have an Amazon Prime account, it doesn't cost you a dime. These are all ways you can support the show, because this is what I do. This is what I'm doing. This is it right now. This is what I do. This is how I get food in my face. And the reason I bring it up right now is because I was about to say some, but a multitude of pricks gave Dinesh D'Souza millions of dollars for 2000 Mules to make that piece of shit. Millions. I'm asking for a cup of coffee every so often. I'm just saying. Good Lord. Meanwhile, and I was ready, by the way, to give him 5 eggs on that one. But considering the storyline of the last weekend and the current state of the non-existence of Roe v. Wade, where we can now, I guess, it will be talked about in historical context, because the next codification of women's rights in the country will have to come in terms of a bill that will have to be passed, and Democrats will have to be in charge for that to happen. So good luck selling everybody on fucking off the fall election. Don't get me wrong, the TYT's doing their level best to get everybody to check out. Thank you so much, Ed. I appreciate that. For the super chat. Meanwhile, this seems to be a recurring story, and this is very peculiar, I think. The read on this. Apparently, because, and I have not watched this, this is a Don Jr. video. Guys, unbelievable. I'm waiting for his hairball to come up. Don Jr., I've seen a couple of other, like Newsmax did a segment on this about how AOC won't condemn the violence because she won't answer the calls of some rando yelling at her while she's doing other interviews. I've seen that on, I think it was Spicer or some shit. I'm guessing it's the same. Guys. There's definitely an ad.
Orcam Read for people with reading difficulties.
This is perfect
for some
an
people.
Eric ad.
Reading can be a challenge.
Like
with
Don Jr.
Orcam Read, just point and click.
The works of Isaac Newton.
Read for school.
Reading it sucked, and I do not like it. My name is Eric Trunk.
Peel and finely chop the onion.
Read a magazine.
Even if you can't read.
Read anything you want. Orcam Read.
Lazy
makes
hippies.
reading simple.
Look at them.
Available now at orcam.com.
We do it.
I think that's amazing.
Wow, guys.
Unbelievable. I'm in our bunker, guys. This is one of the. It's interesting because and I don't know why I was not ready for this, but I sure as shit will be now. Let's see. I need let's see. Gonna need to take this guy. What's this? What's the name of that one? 09. Give me 1 second, because this is too much fun. There's just no way I can pass this shit up. Give me 1 second. So let's see, we go to this one, and then we go to the thing, and where is it? Vids, this one, and we take it, and we go filter, and we edit the filter, and we turn on the chroma key, and we close, and then we move this guy over, and we put it in here. Where's that? Uh-oh.
That moment
What
when
the
you
hell?
finally embrace being an empty nester.
Shut up! That's like an ad started running. Hold on. Let's see. It's a thing and da-da-da. Is this picture here to go? Da-da-do. And I'll try to put it here. Where'd it go now? Hold on. Let me grab this. Add a source. Add a media source. Add a source. There you go. Add a new one. We'll go to You'll appreciate this, guys. Hold on. Local file. Go to the desktop of the thing, and we'll try to find it one way or another. No, it's not on there. This PC to go to the do. Where did you go? This crazy thing. Can it find it anymore? Do. See, open this. Oh, how you want to open this file? See. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Save image. There it is. Save the images. There you go. Trump. I'm just doing a little bit of save as a let's see. Oh, okay. No, I'll just do it this way. Why would this not? I had this before. Okay, I'll file in the same copy and replace. Okay, and then, whoops. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm gonna make this happen. It's driving me crazy now. Pictures. Maybe it's in here. Saved pictures. Oh, I know why. Hold on. 1 second. There we go. Browse. Here we go. Desktop. I don't know why that's not in there. Main. Doesn't matter. Hold on. Close. Trust me on this one. Okay, hold on. Where'd it go? And here we go. This is much better. Hold on. Good stuff. And we move it behind because it matters to me, and we'll try to make it funny so that you can see. Oh yes, it's there we go. Do. Tall display, do the thing, and filters. Here you go. Edit filters, and we'll add a filter, and we'll do a chroma key, and whoops. There it is. Whoop. Add. Hey, there you go. Close. And then we'll take this guy down and we'll shrink it like that. And we'll put this. Yeah, I think this is good. And then give me a second. This is too much fun. Here we go. And we'll do. Yeah, there we go. Close. That's good. Drag this out. Okay, this should This should do it. All right. And transition. Yeah, don't, if you're Don Jr., don't stand around anything green, dummy. It's just not a smart move. I'm just saying, this is, I don't know why these assholes think this is smart at all. Now, I'm sorry. You were saying, dipshit? Yeah, there we go. That's much better. That looks more like wallpaper. Everything was fine. I just had to find a new copy of the picture, was all. For some reason, it didn't want to traverse over because PCs are dicks. If I was on a Mac, this would take it a second. All right, here we go. Guys, don't look over my shoulder, guys.
Incredible news today out of the Supreme Court, a big win. And as we've seen,
Yes, and just for the record, no one in my, how do I put this, background has ever had an abortion. I'm just saying, there are no, in the men behind me in my life, none of them have ever paid for or had an abortion in any way and never would have thought to support it, guys, ever. No one.
since the leak,
What do you mean? Why are you air quoting? It was a leak, fucko.
there's been a lot of pro-abortion groups talking
Pro-choice.
about violence.
No, they haven't. There have not been a lot of pro-abortion groups talking about, yes, they've been talking about the violence to women.
Insinuating violence, seemingly in some cases, to me, encouraging violence.
Right. Did they post any pictures of themselves with a giant dead animal?
And now you have a reporter that spent almost 2 minutes trying to get AOC.
Oh my God. They spent 2 minutes trying to get her to say something?
To condemn any violence.
Really? How long would it take me if you were, I'm just spitballing here. Let's say you were being interviewed by, I don't know, Laura Ingraham, and you guys were walking along and she had a mic in your face and she was just doing something for her Substack or whatever she's going to, after she loses her job at Fox because they get tired of her when they decide she's too Andrea Mitchell and they need some new blood. When she's walking along talking to you, and I start yelling, what did your dad say to Jeffrey Epstein that made him laugh so hard? Why is it okay for your dad to make Jeffrey Epstein laugh? What was the joke? How many minutes would you spend not talking about it?
You already saw the fire bombings. You saw it. So this is a real thing.
You already saw the fire bombings. You mean the anti-choice group that burned their own office?
And she spends 2 minutes. She'll talk to everyone. She won't answer the question.
Will you condemn the violence?
You mean, see the mic in her hand? She's talking to Telemundo in, I don't know, she may be speaking in Spanish even. Maybe she's in Spanish mode and she just, you know how, like sometimes, I remember the first time I dreamt in Chinese. That was a weird moment when you're learning a language and you finally have your first dream where you're speaking in it. It's very strange. But also there are times when, like, I was in China in 2001, and my girlfriend at the time called me, and I used Chinese grammar when I was speaking English with her, and because she said, "How's the trip going?" And I said, "Great. Tomorrow we go Big Mountain." Because I just swapped the English words for the grammar of Chinese. So, which would be 每天我们去大山.
Proposed by pro-abortion groups. Will she not condemn it? Are you not condemning the violence
She's literally talking to someone else.
proposed by pro-abortion groups? So I guess no condemnation.
Is that your guess? Or it could be that she's in mid-conversation with someone else in an actual interview, and you're not. All right.
Can you not touch me, please?
Uh-oh. What? Why is Don Jr. not condemning the violence towards this woman asking these questions? Someone is touching her without consent. Oh, wait, I forgot. This is a Trump video. Women and consent. Come on. Yeah, she's speaking Spanish right now. She's like in Spanish mode. And she's doing an on-camera interview with Telemundo in Spanish. And this woman's like Karening over her shoulder. Why? By the way, does this count as the 2 minutes? This doesn't count. This does not count. For fuck's sake. Maria, Hal, you seem to me a bit slimmer lately. You look so young. Well, I gacked up my shoulder and I haven't been able to work out as much as I normally do. But I appreciate you saying that. I feel good. Other than the fact that it wasn't really my shoulder. I have a pinched nerve in my neck. Probably from sitting at my desk on some of the, because quite frankly, some of these clips are a pain in the neck. So I've literally been using a neck stretcher after the show to realign my neck. I have an inflatable, I'm not kidding. I'll post a picture of it. So I have a pinched nerve right here that was making it's not my rotator cuff. Like I thought it was because it was crunchy and fucked up. But I was getting numbness in my left arm. I was like, oh my God, I don't feel like I'm having a heart attack. And so that made me nervous. Really, I'm a 53-year-old man. That's one of the worries you gotta have, right? And then I was like, but I'd had like right here. And basically I started moving my arm like, where does it go? Where does it go? Ding, like that. And I was like, that's it. That's the one. That's what it is. And so basically I just started treating it. So I started, doing neck exercises. I have this little like inflatable thing that elongates your vertebrae like that. And that's it. Hal, it's angina. It's not angina. Quit it. So it isn't, that it's very distinct because if it was angina, it would, my mom's a nurse. It would be consistent. But it literally was like, if I rotate my head and at a certain point, then I can feel it. So what you do is whenever you have a pinched nerve, you have something like that, because I gacked up my shoulder before, you want to localize the pain. Like you'll feel it in your fingertips or your fingers will itch or feel weird or whatever. It's just a nerve pain. But it'll go up and you move. It's not a tumor. You start feeling it closer and closer to your shoulder, and then it's just shoulder and neck pain, and then that means you're fixing it right. It just takes time. I'm not in any rush. I'm going to take care of it like it's supposed to. But the other thing too is me, sitting up straight. Anyways, yes, I sit and yes, exercise also works. Thank you for noticing, Captain Cheeto. Yeah. So it's not carpal tunnel. That's not my arms. It literally is my neck. I know exactly what it is. It's not to worry. But anyways, the point, I don't know where we got up on this topic or whatever. But I haven't been able to work out like as much as I do. Oh, and my trainer has COVID. So I didn't go to her gym for a week. But I'm glad you think I look younger, I guess. That's a nice sign.
Congresswoman.
Okay, I'm not giving them credit for the blank stuff between the interview where she's yelling while she's doing the interview and then the walking. You don't get credit for when you're not yelling the question. If she'd yelled it the whole time, she'd just be a dick.
Congresswoman, will you condemn the
She's also answering that woman's question.
violence proposed by pro-abortion groups?
The violence.
Will you condemn the violence?
I think I heard her say piss off.
Senator Manchin said he's deeply disappointed by this decision, and he said he would support legislation to codify Roe, but he did not say anything about the filibuster.
Oh, it's Jamie Raskin.
What's your message to him?
Not supporting changes to the filibuster is not supporting the filibuster.
Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, we're taking your response to mean that you do not condemn the violence.
I'm taking your lack of answering my question as a yes, but based on the no quitsies, no changeies.
Proposed by pro-abortion groups.
Realistic, that's the reality. Congresswoman, are you concerned about gay rights, about contraception? Yes, I absolutely am concerned about this.
Excuse me, if she doesn't answer that question, I'm going to just automatically say that she's not concerned about gay rights or contraception. I'm just going to assume.
Are you concerned about the pro-abortion violence proposed?
Right to privacy established by Roe, and that will have knock-on effects for people, even regardless of their views on abortion. They will wake up with less rights, and they don't know it yet.
Will you condemn the violence proposed by pro-abortion groups?
Now,
guys, now, I've never been around a man who would do any violence to any woman. So, guys, now, you heard it. I heard it. We heard it. Heard. I'm in, of course, our Jeffrey Epstein-themed rec room.
if you're on the left, you get to not answer the question, and it's not a tacit acceptance.
No, according to the reporter you're using, it was a tacit acceptance. It isn't, but that's what the woman said.
It's not condoning the violence, even if you ignore a question from a reporter for 2 minutes while talking to other reporters.
Oh, I see. While talking to other reporters. You mean in an actual interview, the one that you more than likely scheduled?
That's not a problem. I have a feeling, based on actual experience.
So the last time, tell us about the last time you firebombed a clinic.
Watching it over and over and over again. If you're
As I do with any AOC video, guys, seriously. Okay, let's just be honest. I hate her, but she always shows up in my Pornhub search results. I can't stop myself.
You're a Republican, and you don't assertively, ad nauseum. How many times did my father have to condone the nonsense they asked him to condone, okay?
How many times did my father have to condone the nonsense they asked him to condone? Fuck me, you stumped me. I'm gonna go with always and never.
You condoned it. He did. You must do it again and again and again. Whatever it was, it didn't even matter.
Yes, apparently it doesn't. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You know, all right. He doesn't mean condone, I think. I think he means condemn. But he's so dumb, I can't tell.
Okay? Many of the things deserve to be condoned, and he did. But
yes, many of the things deserve to be condoned, and he did. What would those things be, dummy? You mean like Charlottesville? What? Condemned. Fucking hell.
But if he didn't do it with every sentence, it was a problem. Here, I have a feeling.
No, the problem he had is when he would condone. Never mind. I don't even know why you can't have a. This is a 3.5 minute video. The fucker couldn't watch it back and go, shit, I meant to say condemned, and then retape it. How lazy are these people?
Feeling we're going to see crickets, folks. Watch for your.
You're going to see crickets. Oh, God damn it. Hear crickets. You hear crickets. You don't see crickets. If you didn't hear them, you wouldn't even know they were there. It's condone and condemn. We kind of, all right. And then fuck me. So lame. Again, this is 3 minutes. This isn't even like a long video he had to cut down. Like, oh God, I was on a half-hour rant and I had to go back and figure. Like, I've slipped on words, in long rants where, but I didn't go back and fix the whole 45 minutes. But in doing it, I was like, oh, did I say that? And the chat will go, you meant, and I was like, oh yeah, that is what I meant. And I'll flip it around. But if I'd have taped and pre-taped this segment and then without a chat there, I would be the one that would go back and give it a glance. Even on the fucking 20-minute rants that I do, this is 3 minutes and 29 seconds, of which 2 minutes is somebody else.
Watch for yourself.
Watch for yourself if these crickets don't just come out of the woodwork, okay? And sneak up behind you guys. Guys, the crickets, you're going to see them everywhere. Watch. And some crickets are brown, others are green. And whatever you do, don't let someone cover you with crickets, because some dickhead will take any green in your environment and chroma key in your past.
And you'll see the double standard.
I'm sorry. This is just so fucking stupid. You'll see the double standard.
Liberal privilege still exists.
Didn't he write that book? Isn't that?
Even if
no one bought your book.
Roe v. Wade and abortion got kicked back to the states. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
People
guys.
collecting those ballots.
Oh, shut up. Can't let it happen. We can't let it happen. Seriously, how much of this time was like from here? 39 seconds in till 2:32. This fucker did less than a minute. How fixing the video takes away his cocaine use. Yeah, I just think he has to chart a video and that's all that matters. And if it's got AOC in it, it's going to chart, whether or not he makes any sense because they, oh God. Don, I don't recommend making that face, but especially with that guy over your shoulder. Oh, I love me Jeffrey Epstein. Misajo. Jesus, condoned it to death. Right. Whew. Good Lord. I actually had more hopes for that video. I'm not going to lie. I thought that was actually going to be, a little more of a gotcha somehow. Like because of the thumbnail, with the picture of AOC and won't condemn violence. Now, again, though, after I saw the title of this, I went and found more than likely where he got it from. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Sean Spicer making the same point in 4 minutes instead of 3.5. Now they jump through the whole thing. They go this, and then she leaves.
Well, apparently she's not going to condemn the violence.
Apparently she's not going to answer the question of an inserious asshole who would give a round of applause to Bill O'Reilly for saying Tiller the baby killer.
Pro-life groups and pregnancy centers are bracing for a night of rage as the violent group Jane...
A night of rage. The Sean Spicer's Nights of Rage. It sounds like a cologne.
Revenge vows action. But you...
What? On the what? Who does what?
A night of rage as the violent group Jane's Revenge vows action.
The violent group Jane's Revenge vows action. Jane says. All right.
But you saw there, Congresswoman.
I'm done with Sergio. He treats me like a rag doll.
And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez refusing to condemn these threats of violence.
Yeah. And trying to use the idea that she's in mid-conversation or talking to serious reporters as an excuse. Please tell me that Sean Spicer has the actual reporter that was asking those questions in studio. And did we ever find out if Don Jr. was right next to her and that's who groped her?
Joining us now is Penny Nance, the president and CEO of Concerned Women for America.
Concerned Women for America, the CWA.
Her offices, by the way, were vandalized back in May.
With Botox darts? They smashed all her lip filler. I'm kidding.
Penny, good to see you.
Tell
me what's happening with organizations like yours in terms of threats that you're facing.
And by the way, where did you get your lights from? Because in October, the haunted houses are going to want them back.
Steps that you're taking in advance of these threats.
Well, first, Sean, I just want to thank you for having me on and say this is an amazing day. We're so appreciative that Donald Trump appointed 3 constitutionalist judges, and we're grateful for.
Well, don't forget to give credit where credit is due. All the progressives and liberals who didn't show up to vote, and while Hillary was able to get the popular vote win, lose the electoral college because they were like, fuck it. Because those people are really who we have to blame. Because he said he was going to do this. And they were like, really? I don't know.
For the women that came before us, that walked the halls of Congress and came to the March for Life with their children on their hips and advocated for this day, taking women into their home and showing alternatives and caring for the least of these. But yes, you're right.
But yes, so true. Here's our spa.
We have been targeted. Our building was vandalized. You were one of the first people to show the actual video in which
they took your Ring doorbell.
Someone, urinated on our door and exposed himself. And so we've.
Whoa. Does anybody know where Greg Kelly is?
Been involved in local police. We made a report of a hate crime to the FBI, which they have yet to have followed up on. But
well, it's a little hard to test urine for hate. I will say, I will say that a lot of guys who publicly urinate it's hard for them to do it without also exposing themselves. I'm just guessing. I don't know what neighborhood you're in, but
we are working closely.
By the way, don't do that. For all the she won't condemn the violence. Blah blah blah, because they were yelling it. She was in an interview. I'll do it. I condemn violence, in political violence in any form. Do not harm anyone or destroy property because of your political fortunes or the beliefs of another person, religious or otherwise. Don't do it. Do not. Doesn't help, and it's wrong. So there, I fully and unequivocally condemn that behavior. As a duly designated representative of all that is good in the world, a dyed-the-wool Democrat who will be voting this fall for a straight blue ticket, I condemn the violence.
With the local police weeks.
Or any threat of violence. How about that? Even suggesting it. You guys know I can be a dick about it. I don't even let you joke about it sometimes.
We expect resolution pretty quickly. But it's not just us. As you've noted, pregnancy care centers around the country.
Pregnancy care centers.
Have been.
No, I don't think she means hospitals.
Targeted. These people are violent. It's a domestic terrorist group.
Okay.
We expect the federal government to do his job. And we and other pro-life organizations are spending, our hard-raised donors' money.
Our hard-raised donors' money.
By paying for security. We have armed security in our office. We have not taken any chances with our...
Yeah, weird. Have you seen the security that abortion clinics have had to go through over the last few years? I'm sorry, you're concerned about some rando dude whipping his dick out and urinating on your building? I got news for you. That happens in most big cities. But I think the family of George Tiller might want a word as far as what you think the threat it is. What fuck you in the least of these? Well, no.
Our employees, I will not take any chances with our employees. But let me just be very clear.
Yeah.
We will never back down. They can do their worst. It does not matter. We are speaking on behalf.
Well, that's because they're not really going to do anything. You can tell these folks are not genuinely, they're not really afraid. And I know what you're thinking. Steven Tyler looks fantastic. Quit it.
Half of those who have no voice, and we will never stop.
Patty, I think what the point you made can't be underscored because it's getting lost.
Can't be underscored? Apparently he went to the same colloquialism and analogy camp that Don Jr. went to. Can't be underscored?
In today's day, Donald Trump said...
In today's day? Jesus Christ. This guy he was the spokesperson for the Trump administration.
Patty, I think what the point you made can't be underscored because it's getting lost in today's day.
Can't be underscored because it's being lost in today's date.
Donald Trump said he would appoint judges that would do this, and he did it. And I feel
right. Hey, Sean, you know what? You mind if I send this clip over to TYT and those crowds right now? He said he was going to do it. You're like, I don't know.
I feel like to some degree it's getting lost in discussion, and I'm really glad you brought it up.
Yes, thank you. I thanked several people right outside the court moments after the decision came down, and the president was one of those. Our women.
Oh, by the way, this is totally in line with both what Clarence Thomas wants to do and the fact that they are, Rick Scott put out this sort of baseline, like a Republican contract for America's future thing where they're going to sunset every law or program every 5 years and have to re-vote on it as a way of getting rid of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
Who came out for our Women for Kavanaugh rallies, our
Yeah, you heard that right.
bus tour, Women for Amy, and advocated for Neil Gorsuch. All of them have a great bit of joy today, and
a great bit of joy today.
Work so hard, but it goes way before this, Sean, as you well know.
It goes way before this.
Oh, you and I have known each other for a long time in the trenches, and it was all the people that stood outside the polling offices giving information on candidate surveys, and all the women who were with their babies advocating on life. I mean, some of them are in heaven now. So we're just incredibly grateful.
Well, I'll tell you what, Penny Nance, this is a big night. I hope you and all the women and supporters and donors at Concerned Women for America take a moment tonight to celebrate. This is a huge night for the movement.
Yes,
this is so wonderful. That's by the way, it's just basically this interview.
And for the number of lives that you will save. So thank you for joining.
And by the way, Jane's Revenge is apparently the group that is doing the violence. Is that what we're talking? Whoops, sorry. Jane's Revenge. I put James Revenge, which sounds like a great band name, by the way. Jane's Revenge. Boyd mentioned Jane's Revenge. Okay, Fox News have analyzed graffiti sites. Jane's Revenge continues to target churches and pro-life reserves. Why? That's the National Review of Graffiti. If abortion isn't safe, neither are you. This is Jane's Revenge. The time is now. Stand up. Okay, so they've actually got a. Honestly, I don't even know if this is real. This is what Jane says. I'm done with Sergio. Yeah, so if abortions aren't safe, neither are you. There's an anarchy symbol. Okay, so not Democrats. The idea is sprayed with blood. For the allies of ours who doubt the authenticity of the communiques and actions, there is a way you can get irrefutable proof these actions are real. Go do one of your own. You are really one of us. Everyone with the urge to paint, to burn, to cut, to jam. Now is the time. Go forth and manifest these things. It says Jane's Revenge. Jane was here. You've seen that we are real. We're not merely pushing empty words. We said we're not one group, but many. You've seen us in Madison, the various cells. You've seen the proliferating messages in graffiti and elsewhere. You know we are serious. We are unsurprised to see 30 days come and 30 days pass with no sign of consilience or even bare minimum or self-reflection from you who impersonate healthcare providers in order to harm the vulnerable. Okay, so they're attacking these places that pretend to be, like abortion providers, effectively. That's the idea, is that they're spraying them with stuff. So Jane was here, that kind of thing. Your 30 days expired yesterday. You offered an honorable way out. You have walked away. Now the leash is off, and we will make it as hard as possible for your campaign of oppression to continue. We have demonstrated in the past month how easy and fun it is to attack. We are versatile. We are mercurial. We answer to no one but ourselves. We promise to take increasingly drastic measures against oppressive infrastructures. Rest assured that we will, and those measures may not come in the form of something so easily cleaned up as fire and graffiti. Sometimes you'll see what we do and you will know that it is us. Sometimes you will think you merely are unlucky because you cannot see the ways we interfere in your affairs, but your pointless attempts to control others. This is like an online manifesto. We need the state to feel our full wrath. Your anger has been stolen from you. To this we say no more. We need to get angry. We need them to be afraid of us. Last week, an evil creature slaughtered 19 children and 2 teachers in their classroom in Texas. While some may call this horrific act senseless or random, we know it's not the case. We know this was an act of male domination and patriarchal violence meant to make women, children, and teachers live in fear. We know it is deeply connected to the reproductive violence about to be unleashed by this land. Okay, so they're just tying these together. Whatever form your fury takes, the first step is feeling it. Consider this your call to action. We must also say, do not wait until the verdict arrives to organize. I guess they posted this earlier. And a lot of anarchy stuff. Headquarters of an anti-abortion group in Madison, Wisconsin was set on fire on Sunday morning by a Molotov cocktail attack by anarchists. The following is their communique. Okay, so this is not a declaration of war. War has been upon us for decades, a war which we do not want and did not provoke. Too long we've been attacked for asking for basic medical care. Too long we've been shot, bombed, and forced into childbirth without consent. This was only a warning. We demand the disbanding of all anti-choice establishments, fake clinics, and violent anti-choice groups within the next 30 days. This is not a friend. Okay, so that's the 30-day thing. You're forced to adopt the minimum military requirement for political struggle. Again, this was only a warning. Next time, the infrastructure of the enslavers will not survive. The infrastructure will not survive. Okay. Medical imperialism will not face a passive enemy. Wisconsin's the first flashpoint. We're all over the U.S., and we will issue no further warnings. We will not stop. Blah, 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 Jane's Revenge. Okay. So that's the group that they're talking about, which, since anybody can have a web page today, yawn. Also, again, condemn it. Don't, I'm not for it. Anarchy's not the answer. And there you go. I think they're, I guess it's a reference to Jane Roe. Yeah, it is an unwise tactic. Yeah, Jane's Revenge shot JR.
Joining us, and thanks for fighting for this.
Thank you.
Okay, that was that. But that's been, oh, I live with Jeffrey Epstein on my wall. So that's it's creeping me out. All right. But that made the rounds. So that talking point, and you know what the fun part about those kind of talking points is, it's kind of a good lesson in the comings and goings of crap talking points. Yeah. Oklahoma, where the all right. Sorry, we have to move on at some point. You're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. They put these clips up. I just answer them. I didn't cut these pieces down. I didn't shorten these things. I didn't put these up. They did. And they thought that these are exemplary of solid talking points. That these are the things that, need be said. Now, let's see. Yeah, good. I think I have time for both of these. I got to keep it high and tight, though. Keep me on a schedule, guys, because there's so much to cover. And then I've got to turn off the... no, on this guy. I got to go to here. We'll go back to this one. So, let's get off topic for a split second, because I think we all recognize how important... Thank you, Benny Loco. I know you get mad at me when I advocate for the system that protects everybody, even when it doesn't, because it's about shepherdship, not the system itself. And I'm committed to making the democracy work. That's just where I come from. Thank you. Say what? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up. Support the show. Bits, subscriptions. Stars if you're on Facebook. Come on, Facebook. You guys can bring up the rear. I have to say, in the insights world, the people that contribute the least, of course, are Twitter, because there is no method for contribution. But of the 3 sites that people can contribute to the show, Facebook is a hard lagger, and it's partly because it's complicated. It's the stars thing is weird. It's like a clunky version of the bits on Twitch, which are way easier to figure out. And I recognize that. So if you got a PayPal account, hopefully that strikes your fancy. Okay. Now, I think we're all very aware what a big deal the Roe v. Wade is. I think we also recognize what a big deal, say, for example, the Ukrainian war is, and the fact that, the Russians are openly bragging about the fact that they're going to use starvation as a tool, that not just Ukrainians. This is not like Holodomor 2.0, although obviously that's part of it. They're willing to starve people in Africa and India and the Middle East and Afghanistan and other places that rely on some of the grain from these areas because they know it'll be cut off, or they can cut off shipments to those areas. And they know that the rest of the world actually gives a shit about those people and will have to make a decision at some point. And since they don't give a shit at all, it's incredibly easy for them to use these kind of tactics. Now, I mean, that ultimately is very similar to the way Republicans view a lot of these issues. They don't really care about the human ramifications of a lot of these issues. They don't. And so it's easy for them. Because they don't actually, and the ones closest to them don't have to actually accomplish anything. They don't actually have to solve a problem. They could just stop the solution that other people's coming up with because they don't give a shit. They don't care. They're not going to care. As a matter of fact, it's now become a point of pride. The Republican Party, under Donald Trump specifically, runs on an anti-caring methodology. What's the underlying conversation about soy boy and all that kind of shit? Is that you're too emotional. Bleeding heart liberal was the basis of this. It's just updated language. There's never, the closest thing, like compassionate conservative was a way that, like, Bush tried to borrow the brand of bleeding heart liberal a little bit because the voters give a shit. Yeah, fuck your feelings, the t-shirt logo from the GOP. Exactly right. Thank you, Bethany, for the super chat. So we're all aware these are serious issues. There are incredibly inserious people, though, out there sort of dissipating the conversation, such as this dipshit. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you, if you haven't seen this fellow before. This is Rusty Trombone. That's his Twitter handle. Russell Brand. And his Hello Betties. And this is his podcasting studio where they put a TV up behind him because in his house he has a window that shows the woodshed. So to keep the brand going, they put a television up in this particular room, made a set for him that looks like the steampunk version of Ben Shapiro's show. And then they put a camera on the woodshed and then they just film tape of it and then they run it back because his viewers like the window, even when it's fake. Yeah. So I don't even think we have to do all of this one. I'm just curious what the fuck he's talking about. The title of this one is, "This is going to push us over the edge." This is a guy, by the way, who sells a meditation program, which apparently you need after he curses you with anxiety. Ladies and gentlemen, Rusty Trombone and his fear farming, in stark relief to what he's selling. Hold on, I have to back this video up. There he goes. Okay, here we go.
Things are bad and they are getting worse. We're getting poorer and poorer. Whose fault is it, though? Putin's? Trump's? Or is it powerful elites and corporations making needless, unnecessary, greedy profit?
It's interesting that Trump isn't president. Biden is getting blamed for a lot of the inflation stuff. The exclusion of Biden's name and the use of Trump's name in this situation is not an accident. And the fact that he's like, whose fault is it? Is it Putin's or Trump's, or is it these guys? The idea being that you could have alleviated the same level of guilt, I suppose, for Biden as a politician, if that's the case you're making. But he's not. He's specifically trying to pull blame away from two particular people, Vladimir Putin and Donald John Trump.
You decide.
Inflation and the wealth transfer.
Hey, you 5.7 million awakening wonders.
Yeah, he has 5.7 million people watching him. I mean, half of them are fake, if not more, but the number's growing. I mean, the best followers somebody on YouTube can buy. That said, we're talking about like 600,000 average on his videos as far as watching, and about 1.6 on his top lines. And there's the occasional 3 million, but that's usually when it involves, Johnny Depp coverage.
Here we ride the algorithm together.
The algorithm.
Remaining intelligent,
Again, what is this Ali G bullshit?
staying awake, ignoring the mainstream media where necessary, finding
Where necessary, but quoting it when it sells your narrative, just like Alex Jones does.
new ways of coming together to create new freedom, both
New freedom.
inside our consciousness and outside our consciousness. And for all we know, we are just nodes within an all-pervading conscious entity. How could we ever know? No one knows yet. We'll work it out by the end of the show. If you don't subscribe yet, subscribe right
No, I'm not going to subscribe. Although people should subscribe to my channel. I'm just saying.
now, and please turn on that notification bell so that
No, don't turn the notification bell on. Just check back in when you want to. I do think it's particularly galling. The subscription part's not that weird. But for somebody who's like, don't let the mainstream media manipulate you, turning on the notification bell on YouTube specifically is so that he can send you an email when he's got a new video up, but also to kind of create a Pavlovian response. That's what that's based on. It's one of the creepier aspects, quite frankly, of social media right now.
that we can continue to cheat
And yet he insists.
an algorithm that wants to keep us dumb.
No. You don't need any help from the algorithm. And also, it doesn't do anything of the sort.
Let's stay free and stay awake, everybody.
Yeah, come on, stay free and stay awake. Now, where was I? Oh, yes, manscaping.
So, you will be aware that people are talking a lot about Putin's price hikes and why everything's much more expensive now and why we're getting poorer and why life's in...
Why we're getting poorer. Oh, he's talking about the stock market. He lost money in the stock market. What do you think the chances are this dickhead had a bunch of crypto?
Since COVID has become a living hell, a perpetual nightmare, why Armageddon is upon us.
What? Wait a minute. When was this taped?
Price hikes and why everything's much more expensive now and why we're getting poorer and why life since COVID has become a living hell.
Life since COVID has become a living hell, he says. During which time he has gone from about 1.2 million subscribers to 5.7 million and has built an entire studio. A living hell. One that, this guy, I guess, surfs through.
Perpetual nightmare, why Armageddon is upon us. Why is it happening? Is it...
Yeah, why is it happening?
Because of Putin? Is it...
Nah, it can't be. If it's because of Putin, your extra 1.7 million subscribers in the last couple years.
Because of Trump? To illustrate some...
Why Trump?
Some of these ideas, we're going to be looking at Crystal Bull, friend of the show, who went...
Oh, a friend of the show, okay.
...on Bill Maher this week. But before we get to Maher and Bull, let's have a look...
Maher and Bull? You mean Ball? Her last name is Ball.
Look at the cause for all the problems that have ever happened. Trump.
Bill Maher, right? Everybody know Bill Maher, for example? He's a radical left maniac with modest television ratings.
Trump, he's still got it, and he can dish out...
He's still got it.
Cuss pretty easily, Trump.
And he can dish out a cuss pretty easily. He's a sharp fella.
A radical left-wing maniac with modest viewers. That's so many... Ooh, ow, ooh.
And as soon as...
And I guess this is from the most recent one? Yeah. In Memphis. We didn't cover this one because it was a waste of time.
Something that's a little bit modest or temperate. Fox and others put him on to explain, oh, look, Bill Maher, a lefty. Bill Maher is saying wonderful things. They play right into the hand of the enemy. It's amazing.
The enemy.
I'm sure he laughs like hell at how stupid they are. They're kissing the ass of the enemy.
Politicians.
They're kissing the ass of an enemy. Yes, Bean Toes, I agree. There is a little bit of wasting away going on in Russell's camp right now. I don't know if it's the stress of having to do this every single day or what, but maybe he's just on a cleanse he's trying to cleanse all the life force from him.
Just don't talk like that normally. This guy could be back in government, I would say, within 4 years, unless the...
Within 4 years. Great timing. you keep talking like that, I'm going to start to think you're not an American voter.
Democrat Party, or I suppose the Republican Party, come up with someone who has that kind of rhetorical appeal, who has that kind of ease in front of an audience.
Ease in front of an audience? He's a sweaty fucking mess. He's rambling about Bill Maher.
If you're one of the people that just loathes Trump and thinks Trump is the worst thing that's ever happened in politics.
No, see, don't use hyperbolic language to pin me into a corner that I think he's the worst thing ever just because I think he's a fucking scumbag. Like, I can understand there are gradations of awful in the world, dummy. But this is also the kind of language people do when they want to manipulate you into being ashamed of your opinion about something, is that they stack it as, you know, oh, you think Trump is Hitler. That's kind of the going rate, you know, the standard that kind of best expresses this version of this argument. Like, no, I don't think he's Hitler. I don't think he's as ideologically even committed as Hitler was. Hitler was far more awful and far more damaging, and the damage he did in the world was much more materially function of his actions than Trump. Trump's just a slapdash asshole who doesn't belong anywhere near the corridors of power, and he's a misogynistic piece of shit. And if you're like, I don't know, I like the cut of his jib like this dickhead is doing, then you're basically saying all that grab a woman by the pussy stuff and all of his misogynistic language. And of course, his putting these 3 Supreme Court justices on there so that they could specifically torpedo a woman's right to choose, that's fine. I mean, it's all just a show. It's just a show, right? I mean, he's just a guy, he's just a showman. He knows how to talk about it. And unless the Democrats get somebody who knows how to talk like that to help, I don't know, get rid of women's rights, they'll never work. It's like Biden kicked the shit out of this guy in an election.
I recognize how you might have come to those conclusions. If you're one of the people that likes Trump a lot, I can see...
That's most of your audience. You can see what? You can see why they would end up being a viewer on your channel?
Why you would.
Yeah, why would you? Was it the Access Hollywood tape or the Chris Matthews interview where he said, you know, there has to be some kind of punishment for the woman who has an abortion?
There are reasonable arguments and assessments on both sides.
No, there aren't. And increasingly in the Republican world, they're even moving away from it.
But what I've said for a long time is if you are anti-Trump, you've got to look at the conditions that caused him. And when Matt Taibbi came on this show and he said...
Oh, fucking Matt Taibbi. Did you ask Matt about his newsletter in Russia? Yeah, I don't know if you guys, it's just funny how it all lines up. Of all fucking people. Matt Taibbi, who, when he was at Rolling Stone for a while, like, especially in the, you know, being against Bush's war machine, he was just kind of one of the regular people, kind of like Greenwald that I would read on occasion, didn't think anything of it, because I didn't look past it to any of that stuff. And then recognize that it was really just about, it was bloviating. But the only gratifying thing about this weekend's uproar over Matt Taibbi's Moscow days is that the Russianists were 20 years ahead of this particular news cycle. Apparently, scandal is a renewable resource. On October 27th, Amy Levitt published a piece in the Chicago Reader with the apt title, 20 years ago in Moscow, Matt Taibbi was a misogynistic asshole and possibly worse. Matt Taibbi and Mark Ames were co-editors of the English-language gonzo, semi-satirical, semi-muckraking expat newspaper, The Exile. It's very reminiscent of early TYT, where, like, Cenk had his, like, guess the camel toe bullshit. Remember that? Do you guys remember that? Hold on. Let's see if this comes up. Oops. Hold on. I'm going to find a... It's going to be... it's taking a moment to load. That'll take a moment to load. Anyways, so let's go back to here, and then as it's loading. Where he engaged in sophomore pranks, nonstop partying, and if their own words are believed, constant sexual harassment. This was a story that was hiding in plain sight, at least in the used book section of Amazon, since Taibbi and Ames told their tale in the 2000 book, The Exile, Sex, Drugs, and Libel in the New Russia. Say what you will, but Ames and Taibbi cannot be faulted for false advertising. The book chronicles their drug-fueled adventures, cocaine and speed for Ames, heroin for Taibbi, as they basically trolled the Russian government, the Moscow expat community, and especially Russian-based foreign correspondents. While living in Moscow in the 90s, I read The Exile frequently, though I reassured myself it wasn't part of the target audience. Russian-speaking academics did not think of themselves as expats, and I steered clear of a community that made me embarrassed to be an American. Opportunistic, egomaniacal young men who looked at Moscow as a place to get rich while, how can I put this delicately, dating out of their league. Their behavior was a perfect illustration of those anxieties I found in contemporary Russian culture. The fear that all of Russia's natural resources, from oil to minerals to the most beautiful women in the world, were being plundered by a rapacious West. The Exile cultivated the gonzo sensibility of its founder's hero, Hunter S. Thompson, but filtered through an ethos that was thoroughly frat boy. Its strange combination of incisive political commentary, laugh-out-loud satire, and vile misogyny made me reluctant to admit that I read it. It gave me a feeling I identify with my teenage years back when I used to visit a store that carried science fiction, comic books, and porn. One-stop shopping for shame. Ames and Taibbi were vicious about the pieties of the English language journalism. Hold on one second. Stop and reload that. Yeah, it's page isn't going to open up. Hold on. Seems like they broomed a bunch of this again. Yeah, here you go. And it's not uncommon. Young Turks founder Cenk Uygur apologizes for ugly, insensitive old blog posts. Young Turks creator and host Cenk Uygur made multiple graphic and disparaging remarks about women in his early days as a blogger, including saying that women were genetically flawed because they don't want to have sex often enough. The Wrap found the blog post from the early 2000s in online archives. In an interview with The Wrap, Uygur apologized and said he deleted the ugly posts a decade ago because I don't stand by them. The stuff I wrote back then was insensitive and ignorant. And by the way, good for you. If you clean this shit up, cool. Stuff I wrote back then was, if you read that today, what I wrote 18 years ago and you were offended by it, you're 100% right. And anyone who is subjected to that material, I apologize to. And I deeply regret having written that stuff when I was a different kind of a guy. He wrote the post while he was still a conservative before he underwent a political transformation into a liberal. His news organization, Young Turks, now offers left-leaning stories and commentary. If someone said that today, I would heavily criticize them on the show, and rightfully so, and I've criticized myself over the years. I had not yet matured, and I was still a conservative who thought the stuff was politically incorrect and edgy. When you read it now, it looks really honestly ugly, and it's very uncomfortable to read. Matt Taibbi, when he wrote about that shit, did not in any way say that about it. In the book about it, they're basically patting themselves on the back for it. So, friend of the show, Matt Taibbi, who along with this asshole, thinks that Trump is charming.
That Trump understood that the Democrats couldn't argue with him on issues of corruption, funding, lobbying, not doing anything about Big Pharma. And the conditions that led to Trump, I think, have gotten worse.
Right. It's almost as if he was fucking lying. And Taibbi said that they couldn't argue with him about that kind of stuff because they were busy actually arguing the real issues, the actual underpinning of programs to help people. They were, the lobbying aspect was ultimately bullshit because it didn't matter who lobbied for what. The pharmaceutical companies made money on COVID based on whether or not they came up with the first and most functional and the most useful vaccines.
Since Trump, do you think Biden's made a real difference since
Yes.
coming back in?
Yes. We're out of Afghanistan. We have an infrastructure bill that they've already started breaking ground on projects. We have the first bipartisan gun legislation. We have 3.6% unemployment for the first time in forever. And unemployment and wages were growing so fast that it's one of the triggers for why the Fed thinks they need to raise interest rates. The rescue package, an actual plan to get people vaccinated. We're 70% vaccinated in this country, and that doesn't include natural immunity on top of it. So we're basically 100%. So, yeah, I do think so.
Stumbling about in his penny farthing. Do you think,
fuck you.
Few and things better since Joe Biden's been in?
Yes. Look, no president is in charge of the state of the world. It's your response to it. It's being a good shepherd about it. This asshole's like, it doesn't really make any difference. So wouldn't you rather just have somebody who talks shit for no reason?
And you know, like the way he shut down Saudi Arabia, the great way that he's controlled farmer prices.
He shot down Saudi Arabia.
The brilliant.
But what do you mean? Pharma prices?
Shut down Saudi Arabia. The great way that he's controlled farmer prices.
Oh, the great way that he's controlled pharma prices. Now, this is, whoops, hold on. Let me back this up. Give me the. This is what Biden wants, for example. $35 insulin price cap. This is what he's shooting for. Has been, this is from his State of the Union. Let's see. The Sotu, you're going to 35 is welcome, popular. Here he goes. Here you go. Hold on. Here you go. Let's say this. We'll just grab this one. $35 insulin cap is welcome, popular, and bipartisan, but Congress may not pass it anyway. Democrats in the Senate are primed this month to make their first attempt at salvaging one of the most popular elements of President Joe Biden's stalled Build Back Better plan, the proposal to cap insulin costs $35 a month. It might not go well. That's true even though the idea of helping millions of Americans with diabetes afford a crucial medicine has immense public support and even bipartisan adherence. But then there are politics between Democrats and Republicans, of course, but also among Democrats. Senator Raphael Warnock is sponsoring a bill expected to come up in March or early April that would cap the price. But pursuing Warnock's bill would remove that provision now in the Build Back Better plan. So this is the argument here is if you take it out, that might keep this one from passing, if you do it piecemeal. That's the big argument. If we can't have everything, we don't want anything. Warnock's right. This is something you could pass. Get the wins on the board. Drug companies have dramatically jacked up prices in states, leaving Americans to pay more than 10 times as much as people in developed countries. This not immediately. This has happened over time. Chuck Schumer highlighted the obvious selling points of bringing down insulin costs when he announced before Congress President's Day that that the issue would be a priority. It's just preposterous, beyond preposterous, that Americans with diabetes sometimes pay $600 for just 40-day supply of insulin. There's enormous interest in our caucus to pursue this proposal, so it will be a priority for Democrats in the weeks ahead. It's been a long bipartisan issue. As many as 20 states across the country, many in Republican legislatures and governors, have passed state-level insulin caps. There is no reason this shouldn't be bipartisan in this body. One of the reasons, by the way, Republicans are against the cap is because if it's federal, then those people who enjoy the state cap that they've had for a while could move. Yeah. The power of portable rights.
The brilliant way that he's taken responsibility for the American economy. Oh no, none of that's happened, has it?
And in that case, his ass is not particularly pretty, is it? Not particularly pretty.
Like, who else would comment on someone's actual ass quality? That's Bill Maher's ass we're being invited to contemplate there. We went hard on Trump.
Yeah, if only we had other politicians who were, who had this kind of, thrilling oratory.
Ages ago when he was running for the candidacy and stuff, but you gotta say, the guy's funny.
No, you don't. It's just gross. You have to be impressed with him to think he's funny.
Let's have a look at.
You have to. It requires a charitable reflux. Thanks, Jonna.
Crystal ball on Bill Maher, and maybe we'll have a look at Bill Maher's ass also. But Crystal ball is, of course, focusing, I would imagine, more than on Bill Maher's ass, perhaps on the economic conditions in America that are demoralizing most people, that are exacerbating the disparity between elites and ordinary Americans. Why is it happening?
Gee, it's almost like a tired talking point we've heard a lot of times over and over again with no actual movement on doing it. It's just Discontent Incorporated.
Who's to blame? Are we being invited to regard convenient scapegoats as the problem, whether it's like immigration on the right or ordinary working class Americans if you're from the left? Or
I'm sorry. Listen to that. Listen to this fucking guy. Who are the scapegoats? Who are you scapegoating, right or left? What I don't know what the fuck this is. That's so the right scapegoats immigrants and the left scapegoats ordinary working class Americans.
Are we being invited to regard convenient scapegoats as the problem, whether it's like immigration on the right or ordinary working class Americans if you're from the left? Or
what? I mean, that is essentially a Trump talking point. This is why this asshole thinks Trump is funny. Is because he buys that. He thinks that's what the left is doing. The left, the problem, he thinks that the left sells as a talking point and genuinely believes that the problem is ordinary working class Americans. Now, I wouldn't doubt that this might be something he picked up from watching Crystal or talking to her before, and this is how it filtered through his rather porous but shockingly smooth brain.
Or is it Putin? Or is it Trump? Whose fault is it? Is anyone benefiting from this?
Part of this inflationary problem is because we put too much money into the economy. There's
bullshit.
Way too much government spending, and that's
nonsense.
Why we have inflation. So that's a large part.
No, it isn't.
For that.
It's
just basic economics. And
that is not basic economics. We had this thing called a pandemic. We had a supply chain crisis. And by the way, there's a war in Ukraine.
It played a role. It's played a role.
So to act like the only reason we have problems now is because people got a little bit of money in their bank account is just not honest.
And a little bit of money, they got more than we spent in World War II. So don't act like
hold on.
Hold on. Don't act like...
They didn't get it, by the way. What do you mean they? The system our entire economy, currently... just the retail sales jobs in this country and like restaurants, like waiters and people who were taken out of the workforce almost entirely. They exist, the price point of their existence, how much money they make for a living, how much taxes they pay, is bigger than the expenditure for World War II because there's that many more fucking people in the world and there's that much more expenditure in the world. The system is that big. Our economy has doubled in size since 2000. The US GDP was around $10 trillion in 2000. It's now closer to 26, if not $30 trillion. Everything you could bifurcate any chunk of spending and say that's more than we spent on this in World War II.
Like you said, don't act like we had to react to the pandemic exactly the way we did. We had to spend $6 trillion.
Okay, but how about the trillions that the Federal Reserve shot at Wall Street? Somehow nobody gets upset about the rich people who got tons of money and tons of support, way more than working class people did.
Sure,
but my God, people were able to feed their kids and they had a little bit of money in their bank accounts. It was the worst thing in the world.
No.
That is one small part of the inflation story. And it is, by the way, not the only thing that we can deal with.
It's not even the major one. She's right. But it's not even the major part of it. Almost all of the inflationary pressures we've seen, which are not CPI, they are not consumer price. The consumer prices index is not a record of inflation when it goes up. It is a responsive metric. Inflation means they go up and effectively stay there. Otherwise, we would just have inflationary and deflationary cycles. We don't talk in those terms. We talk about over inventories and sales and lack of items and stuff, but we don't talk about the inflationary cost of an item over time that way because it's not indicative of it. It is not. And especially in this particular system, like there is a liquidity problem worldwide. Even if you dumped the kind of money everybody was talking about, like on every American, they just throwing cash at these folks, it's still not going to affect the volume of cash in the world the way it needs to.
Deal with to get out.
They're going to dial back. The Fed's going to go up in July, and then he's going to dial it back this fall by 0.5 point.
Of this mess.
Well, gas
so
prices.
Biden
is it a small part, Jamie?
Gas prices we can largely attribute to an administration that's been waging war on the fossil fuel industry.
Bullshit.
That's ridiculous.
And
They
now
drilled
demand-
more than everybody. I mean,
That's the talking
U.S.
point. That's not
U.S.
true.
production.
No.
Okay, U.S. production is up.
Well-
it will be at record levels next year.
Okay, well-
The fossil fuel companies themselves are flush with cash, but will not invest in new drilling because they would rather give it to their shareholders.
Okay, all right,
That's
wait.
the truth.
So, fossil fuel companies.
Fossil. How'd you say that again?
Because they would rather give it to their shareholders.
Okay, all right,
That's
wait.
the truth.
So, fossil fuel companies.
Fossil fuels. I see. Those are different, though. I'm not. Fossil fuels are, I think, mostly made out of milk foam, if I'm not mistaken.
Companies, record profits. Billionaires, record profits. The
Billionaires, record profits. Record revenues. It depends on what they do with it, fucko. Again, this is just. And that's not even what she's saying.
biggest wealth transfer in history.
Nonsense.
Whatever's gone on in the last couple of years, it benefited the most powerful interests in the world.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have if those interests hadn't also benefited largely the people that needed it at the time, especially when we talk about something like Amazon. The fact that you could order most of your goods and have them brought to your doorstep in a way that you never could before in our history, the fact that you were able to do that is why Amazon made that money. And if it hadn't existed, we'd have just had a lot more dead people because you would have had to go out and get your shit.
Just fine. But how did the Federal Reserve want to deal with this? By lowering your wages. Federal Reserve Chair and former private equity
The fucking Jacobin.
exec Jerome Powell, that's a coincidence, has promised to tackle inflation by lowering workers' wages. If there's one thing that...
Yeah, that's not what he said. That's part of the factor. That's what they expect to happen to some degree if they raise the cost of borrowing money. That's historically what has happened. Sometimes it drives down wages and employment. That's a part of it. They're expecting that. That's not the goal. The goal isn't to drive down wages, but it's to keep everybody else from basically paying a premium on those risen wages and evening it out some, because the idea is the economy's overheated and people are, they're overpaying for certain jobs and not enough for others. And so the cost of gas hits people differently. This fucko doesn't care.
Controls the world. It's ordinary people who don't earn much money. At the same time, he has declined to implement a law to reduce the skyrocketing paychecks of his former colleagues on Wall Street. This is...
What do you mean he has? Jerome Powell can't implement a law that cuts back CEO pay.
Precisely what Crystal is talking about.
No, it isn't. She's just talking about supply shock versus, capital inflation.
Visible stimulus packages were offered to the financial industry, and even Bill Maher, who's hosting a show about this stuff, was unaware of it. This is what people mean when they say that the main...
No, he wasn't unaware of it. He was making the case, at least from the clip that you showed, that the bigger impact on inflation was the money, the cash paid out, more likely the child income tax credit or the extended unemployment insurance. He was one of the people who thought that was printing money and flooding the system and running up debt and all that kind of shit. That kind of talking point's been around forever, and it never plays out that way. It's simply a way to bully people into austerity spending too early in response to a major crisis. That's what that conversation's always about. When we talked about the austerity strangulation that was going on post 2008, 2009, it's because the crash had happened, and yet you needed it because these businesses were on pause or having to find a way to shuffle around money. They couldn't borrow money to continue to work because their source couldn't, produce anymore. So they didn't have any options except to borrow money to do it. And there was no money to be borrowed. So it fucked people out of existence. And so the only thing keeping these people afloat was effectively state programs. And the idea was that the IMF and others was telling these countries that rely on this stuff a lot, especially, that they needed to dial it back more. That you needed to bring down the austerity, they needed austerity, they had to bring down social spending because that driver of debt was what was making stuff wonky. None of it was. A lot of it was just fucking tendrils of bullshit money overlapped in these credit default swaps and other stuff that once that tentacle gets cut, it all rots. And everything attached to it, whether they meant to be a part of that system or not, was suddenly finding themselves on the back end of trying to borrow money to pay their employees until things got normal again.
Mainstream media manages the narrative. Certain information is highlighted, other information obfuscated, then our reality...
Yeah, that's what you do, dickhead. What does he think his show is?
Is derived from the available
Oh, sorry. I sticking it right in his eyeball. Right. Sorry.
information. This is what we're trying to do on this channel.
Yes, this is what we're trying to do on this channel. We're trying to highlight certain things to make you believe a narrative.
Highlight
Thanks, Andrea.
voices that are talking about important information that might otherwise be marginalized.
No, you wouldn't. That's not at all what you're trying to do. You're trying to obfuscate reality with a contrived narrative from what you consider radicals on some level to undercut people's actually thinking they can make an impact or give a shit by creating a new paper dragon Illuminati bullshit that's behind every door where the elites and the billionaires stop you from being able to blah because they control everything and that horse shit.
While former private equity executive and Federal Reserve Bank Chair Jerome Powell takes aim at workers with a pledge to get wages down to combat inflation, he has declined to implement a law to reduce the skyrocketing paychecks of his former colleagues on Wall Street. He has also approved and financed a merger wave that critics say has inflated the cost of consumer financial services. Note how consistently and regularly ordinary people or people without much power are located as the cause of vast economic and social problems. But if you just keep in mind this...
Okay, first of all, when you talk about social problems, the vast majority of people aren't in the 1%. That's why they're not the 1%. That's why there's 99% of it. So when it comes to socially interactive problems and consumer spending and those kind of things, the vast tide and trends are caused by the largest group of fucking people.
idea. How can people that don't have much power have much influence?
Because all it takes is a little bit everywhere to make an enormous impact. This is exactly the argument for working on climate change on a personal level. It's why we recycle, you fuckwad. It's why we have solar panels on houses instead of just giant solar and wind farms. It's why promoting geothermal around individual houses, especially in certain areas, for example, as a regular part of the building structure will have more of an impact than trying to create these giant, fields of geothermal or hydroelectric power through dams and the like. That one-on-one, you can have a much bigger impact. That's why individuals talk about your carbon footprint individually, because there are that many of us. There's fucking 8 billion people on the planet, dummy.
It sort of just stands to reason. It's a simple, systemic way of thinking about these matters.
No, it isn't. It shows you can't. You're incapable of thinking of it systemically, because no system is made up of 1% of its parts, no matter how big the system.
The 2010 Dodd-Frank financial reform law mandated the creation of a rule to rein in Wall Street bonuses. The rule is supposed to be developed and implemented by 6 regulatory agencies, including the Federal Reserve that Powell runs. But as he has sounded the alarm about inflation and wages, Powell has so far done nothing to help create that rule, even as Wall Street bonuses just hit an all-time record of $45 billion in a single year.
Wall Street bonuses, which is, by the way, everybody who operates on a bonus structure in all of quote unquote Wall Street, whatever their definition of it is. So from like the tops of the company to the branch people to whoever can salvage things. And the more systems get in deep shit, the more bonus oriented. If you can't give somebody the salary they're worth, you'll often add a bonus to how well they can get the company doing. There's a shit ton of bonuses after 2008 that had nothing to do with the crash of 2008, but how fast can we pay back through legal means, pay back the government money that we had to borrow to stay afloat. Anybody who gets us there quicker will meet this bonus structure and this bonus structure. And they did a shit ton of that. It's not illegal, and it was a way to motivate their workers. And it got them off the government debt quicker, and the federal government and the U.S. taxpayer made money on the 2008 crash. Money that went to public works programs.
Yeah, so all the while we're talking about
all the while you're talking out of your ass.
Economic crisis.
Oh, nice. Happy birthday to Steely Dan 68 on Twitch. Nice. Stacey, happy birthday, Steely Dan. Hey, 86? Sorry, 68.
Cost of living rising. There's been a world record year in bonuses. That doesn't make sense.
Yes, it does. Because there are more people in that structure getting bonuses, largely, by the way, from companies that in normal times, especially when they work on a percentage, when you have your bonus structure on percentages, if we go up this amount, you're going to see that in the years before, there were no bonuses. Everything shit the bed. So in 2020, when everything went away, everybody went, look, whoever can get us back above water again so the company doesn't capsize and everybody here isn't out of a fucking job gets an extra bonus. Get it? And because you were at a way lower scale, the percentage rise is much more drastic than if you were digging your way out of a hole. It's not surprising at all.
How can those things not be connected?
Fucking hell. How can your brainstem and your spine not be connected?
Wouldn't you feel that you were living in a more reasonable society if people said, look, the cost of living's gone up and people that are working in the financial industry and not...
And you go, hey, if we'll give bonuses to everybody in the company who can think of a way that we can lower costs but keep our product available at a certain amount. And you know, I know it's costing us $19,000 for just a shipping container for our shit, where it used to cost us $400. And if anybody can figure out a way to flatten that cost out over people where we don't have to cut wages and fire people, you'll get a bonus. If we don't have to pay $19,000 for a shipping container, you can get it down to 10. We'll give you 4 of that. Get it?
Not earning as much money as they used to.
No, they are earning more money than they were used to. It's just gas and oil in particular and supply shock have driven up the cost temporarily. And people's wages don't fluctuate down most of the time afterwards, unless they fire everybody and then rehire new folks. But if you establish a salary next year, most of the time they're going to offer you a cut in salary. You're going to move someplace else, and they don't want to do that to somebody that they've trained up and can do the fucking job, especially the more complicated it is.
Extraordinary that we can't correlate these necessarily connected pieces of information.
No, it's weird that you think things are this simple and that blame is easy to find in a situation where we are dealing with worldwide global supply chains severed and removed from existence going forward. That the world is moving away from oil and gas at a faster clip than it ever has. And that's going to have an impact on people's lives.
Information. Dodd-Frank mandates that a Wall Street compensation rule require banks to ensure that their executive compensation packages do not incentivize risky behavior, such as risky lending to hedge funds like Archegos Capital Management, which collapsed in 2021 under the weight of hundreds of millions of dollars in loans from major banks like Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, but that wasn't risky until COVID happened. Nobody's operating, especially in the financial world, as if, there might be a worldwide pandemic that guts the entire Earth's economy and puts like multiple first world countries at 15 and 20% inflation after a bunch of their people die.
We know that in 2000...
Those things weren't risky because of the makeup of those things. It was risky because life is risky. I was tapping my desk so much that I knocked Boba Fett off of his stand. It's not right. Along with Tack. Tack also fell. Gotta calm down. Dipshit's setting me off.
2008, there was an economic crisis that is still impacting the lives of ordinary Americans.
No. Look, there's an argument for... There were people who had the rug pulled out from under them in 2008, 2009 that are barely getting back to where they were. But that's nothing compared to the impact of COVID on people's businesses and individual lives. And if you knew that, or you gave a rat fuck, you'd recognize that Tesla, Elon Musk company, who I'm sure this asshole would line up to ball gargle, wouldn't exist if Obama hadn't added electric cars to the auto bailout. Just wouldn't. There wouldn't be any of this shit. None of it. SpaceX wouldn't exist. Tesla wouldn't exist. Nonsense. It would have come and gone.
and people across the world to this day. That was precisely because of these types of behaviour that no one's ever been prosecuted for. That
because it was legal. There's a difference between Bernie Madoff and credit default swaps. Credit default swaps were legal. That's why no one was prosecuted for it.
There were stimulus packages introduced then as now to protect the elite. And
by who?
Elite structures.
The elite structures
that dominate ordinary lives. So
you mean like car companies?
We cannot allow the mainstream media to continually...
Al, you had a time I need to leave. No, I think I'm okay. We're just a little past it. I'm okay.
Locate ordinary Americans as the problem. This past February...
Again, what the fuck do you mean ordinary Americans as the problem? This asshole just wants you to pretend that Biden didn't put in the American Rescue Plan. That didn't get passed. Or that we're still in Afghanistan. Or that we didn't pass an infrastructure bill. Or that we didn't... bring employment back to a reasonable number, lower than reasonable.
February, Sarah Bloom Raskin, President Joe Biden's nominee to be the Fed's vice chair for supervision, promised to implement the law.
This past February. Jesus Christ, and it's already...
Bloom Raskin withdrew her nomination amid opposition from corporatist Democrats and...
Sorry, it's the bottom part of that sentence that really stands out. Oh, is it corporatist? Why is Democrats in fucking brackets? And every Republican senator, by the way, citation needed for this bullshit.
And every Republican senator.
And every Republican senator. And by the way, what Russell Brand has been telling you is that there's really no difference between the two, and using Donald Trump as a boogeyman, for example, is evil. Okay, also... There you go. Let's see. Well, here's a good, let's see. Those of us that are fans of Elizabeth Warren as a human being, the CFPB is turning to Dodd-Frank's unfinished business. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's rulemaking agenda will be dominated in the year ahead by unfinished rules that Congress mandated more than a decade ago by Dodd-Frank Act. The CFPB laid out the timeline for 5 rules in its spring agenda the Bureau expects to complete by May 31st, 2023. 2 of the rules considering the most consequential, including consumer access to financial records and small business data collection rules. This is, let's see, where we go. Bank of America. There you go. Here's the Dodd-Frank annual stress test. This is the primary thing that Dodd-Frank brought about. Whoops. Load, you silly thing. Oh, well. Anyways.
So someone was going to implement that law. That person's gone away now. So the Biden administration is...
The CFPB is doing it.
Isn't going to do anything.
No, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to do... They're not even putting anybody... They're not going to...
Position from corporatist Democrats and every...
Fucking hell. Hold on, wrong article. Give me a second. Here you go. This is there you go. The article. Why is this not opening on here? Here's just so you know, this is the Jacobins edit. Biden pick for top bank cop faces narrow path to confirmation. Sarah Bloom Raskin, the White House's nominee to lead bank supervision at the Federal Reserve, is under fire for her views on climate regulation. Sarah Bloom Raskin's past statements on climate regulation are stoking heated Republican opposition to her nomination to be the Federal Reserve's vice chair for supervision and could lead President Biden pick with a narrow path to confirmation. Ms. Raskin, former Fed and Treasury official who previously argued that financial regulators should police climate risks more diligently, faced resistance during her hearing before the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs on Thursday. She's been nominated alongside Lisa Cook and Philip Jefferson, economists up for seats on the Fed's Board of Governors. The three need to first pass out of the committee and then must attract support from the majority of senators to win confirmation. It is unclear if Ms. Raskin in particular will clear those hurdles. The margin here is slim to none for her, said Ian Katz, a managing director at Capital Alpha Partners, which is especially true of Senator Ben Ray Lujan, a New Mexico Democrat who is recovering from a stroke, is not present for coming votes on the Fed nominations. Senior aide to Mr. Lujan said Wednesday that he expected to make a full recovery and should return in 4 to 6 weeks, barring complications. Obviously, she withdrew during that time. If the Banking Committee deadlocks along party lines over Ms. Raskin's nomination, a majority of America's 100 senators could vote to move her past the committee. But unless Ms. Raskin can win Republican support, they may need to wait until Mr. Lujan returns, since Democrats need all 50 senators who caucus with them and the vice president's tiebreaker if all Republicans are opposed. And even when Ms. Raskin may need to secure support from centrist Democrats like Manchin of West Virginia to win confirmation. I'm not expecting her to get any votes from Republicans in the committee. Estimating she has less than a 60% chance of being confirmed. It's really, really close. Let's see. There are two others who are in line with what she's doing. She was the stuff about her stuff, her being on there with the other two people, was not that she was in particular fighting for this particular rule. She was she leaned towards, she thought that this was a Green New Deal hit.
Republican senator. So someone was going to implement that law. That person's gone away now. So
bullshit.
The Biden administration isn't going to do anything, are they? In response.
Yes, they are. The other two people they had on got through, and they're going to replace their nomination with her with somebody else and get somebody else on the board, because you don't leave the gap unfilled.
The rising inflation. Powell could crack down on Wall Street bonuses.
Nowhere near the impact. None whatsoever. Wall Street bonuses are not why the price of eggs are high or why gas is high.
Demand the closure of the private equity tax loophole.
Also wouldn't have an impact.
Or use the Fed's power to block bank mergers.
Also would not have an impact.
All just sensible suggestions.
No. They would have zero impact on the cause of inflation currently.
For controlling the economy in ways that would be impactful without annihilating the lives of ordinary Americans.
Okay, first of all, citation needed. Who's to say that blocking some of those things or making those draconian rules wouldn't actually be detrimental to people long term? You don't even know what they are. They're just abstracts.
Instead, Powell's anti-inflation campaign is focused on raising interest rates to reduce the money supply.
Right, like that prick on Mar.
A policy that tends to increase unemployment and put downward pressure on rank-and-file workers' wages.
Yes, that's the impact of it. That's not the goal.
The result is a much higher degree of misery for ordinary Americans.
No, it isn't. The higher degree of misery for ordinary Americans is more impacting on if inflation goes past whatever wage increases they've gotten. That's your misery index, dum-dum.
While the overall purchasing power of the country is reduced.
No, it isn't. The dollar's ridiculously strong.
Powell and the senior Fed leadership have little connection to that suffering. Powell was a senior executive at the Carlyle Group for much of his career, and his financial disclosures show an enormous investment portfolio worth up to $55 million.
That portfolio goes up and down with the market the same way everyone else does. The impact of those investments is affected by inflation itself in a negative way.
Imagine how different it would be if these...
Imagine how different it would be if you put people who are currently starving in the kitchen. What kind of decisions would they make? Would any food get cooked at all? Would the best ingredients be eaten nearly raw and then right? Like, this is such a stupid argument.
These positions at a national and local, federal and state level.
They do have them. We have Fed. What do you think the St. Louis Fed is, you fucking moron? This asshole has no idea how this system works. He's just one of the, like, we need to audit the Fed, and it's like, we shouldn't even have an income tax. The whole thing was just concocted by the Rothschilds.
Level were filled by an assembly of elected officials drawn from the communities that they
are. All of these boards are appointed by people who are elected representatives. If you don't like who's being appointed, then change your representatives.
Regulate, rather than an elite merry-go-round of individuals that operate only in this sphere, that have alliances only in this sphere.
They don't. And also, it's interesting that somehow you think that they're not interconnected with everybody else. Now, there are definitely groups that couldn't give a rat fuck, but these guys they're not running hedge funds. If that's where their heart and soul was, they wouldn't be on the Fed. They'd make way more money in that zone because hedge fund managers make money whether you make money or lose money.
Have an ideology that's about the protection of this sphere.
Right. Like how?
How will you ever change America when you...
Excuse me. It's none of your fucking business. I tell you what, you get rid of your royal family and we'll tell you what we're going to do.
Utilizing personnel that are invested in it staying the same. Let me know in the comments below if you know.
Oh, fuck off. Sales pitch. All right. I'm out. And I ran out of time because I had... Look who TYT is targeting. Biden picks, look at this. Biden may have just doomed the entire Social Security system. Bullshit. What they're talking about is this guy being on the Social Security Advisory Board with a bunch of other people. He does not have any power to doom Social Security at all. It's a bipartisan board. The whoever's in power recommends both Democrats and Republicans to the board. So if you're a Democrat, you're going to put a Republican on. If you're a Republican, you're going to put a Democrat on. If they swap somebody out, that's how the shit works. Biden picks pro-privatization goon to lead Social Security. No, he doesn't. And the dude served under Obama and he served under Bush. And it's like, again, same shit. But this is a week after Roe v. Wade and a month after Rick Scott's plan to scuttle Social Security. The impact of this dude being on the board. Yes, that's Tanya Harding, in case you guys don't know. What they've decided is super important targeting. This is us being honest or whatever. But believe me, they'll run stories like this all into August. And then 6 weeks before the election, they'll go, vote blue, though, because your only choice. And a bunch of their viewers will go, fuck you. Why would I do that? These people are monsters. He wants to get rid of Social Security. You told me this in June. I'm kidding. That's Anna Kasparian. That's not really Tanya Harding. She, because at least Tanya Harding's just kneecapping her competition. Anna and Cenk are trying to kneecap the entire Democratic Party. Because who does that benefit? I can't. I feel like no one needs that in their life. She just looked like she saw a brand coming at her. There's something about having a top knot or a man bun either way that apparently does things to your brain. South Park's other girlfriend. Watch it, Wes. You wish. TYJ. The young jerks. Is that what we're saying? So anyways, I got to go. I went over tonight, but it was a good conversation, at least about the economics of this bullshit. But I would like to say for the record that I thought Crystal Ball was doing just fine on Bill Maher's show. And in a couple of weeks, Russell will be kissing Bill Maher's ass about free speech or wokeness or something like that. He'll do a video where he actually supports what Maher is saying and pretend this video didn't exist. It's toilet paper. The man makes like the world's most frightening toilet paper for a living. And I'm not going to participate in that. See, I'm optimistic. I've got dreams. I'm a young man. I have prospects. And I personally think this fall is going to be a blue tsunami. And I trust you guys to be a part of that and to remind everyone to vote.org. And also, and not .com, by the way, .org. Some people were confused. Vote.org. And then I will be here basically resuscitating this dead horse. I'm not going to beat it. I'm going to give it a blood transfusion and heart massage, whatever. I'm going to bring this fucker back to life. And while these assholes are trying to get you to not vote and to blow off the one opportunity you have to codify a woman's right to choose, to codify voting rights, to protect contraceptives and gay rights, even beyond marriage, just your ability to go to work and not be fired for being gay. Like, that's on the chopping block. They've announced it. And anybody who's like, yeah, but is it blah? It's halfway. Anybody who even remotely talks like that, fuck those people. They're awful. Ugh. But you guys, not you guys, I love you guys, because you're here and you give me your eyeballs, and I appreciate that, including the trolls. So thank you so much. Yeah, if you're a Patreon supporter and you haven't gotten your patch yet, go to follow Mark on Twitter and send him your info, and he's sending them out. I bless him. He's finally helped me to like outsource and get more stuff done, because I spend so much time on this stool that it's either that stuff or my son, and this the choices I'm gonna make. Okay, yes, it's a Midwestern goodbye. Fine, Doc Spano, fine. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow, and I will be live tweeting the hearing tomorrow. So enjoy, and we'll talk about it afterwards. I'm very excited. It's last minute, very exciting. I'm titillated, if I can use that term in pleasant company. I hope so. All right, see you tomorrow.